If you coach or consult on team performance, this demo is for you. Discover in this demo how most teams don't underperform because people lack motivation or skills, but because one or two invisible inefficiencies or behavioral incompatibilities dominate this invisible system. In this demo, I'm mapping a real team, 4 people, one shared objective, and very different ways of engaging with responsibility, with time, pressure, relationships, communication. What's interesting is that everything looks fine from the outside. Meetings happen, people are polite, work gets done fairly well, and yet energy leaks. Frustration builds, and leaders feel like they're constantly compensating for some things that they cannot see. So I want to show you in the demo what happens when we stop as coaches and consultants facilitating behavior and start reading how the system is actually wired from behind. Let's jump into the tests. Okay, so we have our team of 4. Mind you, this can be done with a team of 10, 15, 20 people, okay? But I have a very small screen and they don't all fit. So I've taken a team of 4. The industry they're in doesn't really matter, even though, because the process of mapping is exactly the same. Just to give you a little bit of context, these are 4 people that work in a big store. Okay, they've worked together for a while. They get fairly well along, but there are things that my client sees that he doesn't very much like. So he asked me to map the team. And the first thing that we look at is, I'm going to stay just for screen purposes because they don't, I don't have a big enough screen to show you all of their entire maps. But there's also the lower part with the subtraits, and I've checked reliability. So all the algorithms are coherent enough, and I can start looking at how behaviorally they are not in synergy. So the first thing that jumps at me is the relationship columns. So I'm going to write here as well. Let's see if I can do this. So this person, member number 4, has really good high quality behaviors when it comes to building, nourishing, and creating relationships. They're extroverted, empathetic, very open to listening and understanding and tolerating other people. Colleague number 2, I would say pretty good, a little bit selective, so he might be a little bit quieter than colleague number 4. But again, there's good empathy, there's good warmth, there's good understanding and tolerance and wanting to bridge the gap of differences, wanting to understand them, wanting that curiosity that keeps us listening even when we don't agree. Okay, so they both have that. Colleague number 3 down here, on the other hand, again, a talker. So we can see here, a talker and warm and friendly and nice, a little bit not so interested in agreeing to disagree. So this type of relationship style is a little bit more abrasive. They will not hesitate to tell you that you are wrong and that they don't agree with you, which is totally okay, except that in a team, we might want to, as their coach or their consultant, you might want to train them in that listening, even when we agree to disagree. Staying in that discussion, staying in that conversation, staying in that solution-focused conversation. But the problem, I think, comes from team member number 1 up here, because her relationship columns or behavior, she's quite contracted. So yes, she's extroverted. She talks freely with everybody, but really she's not warm. She's not very empathetic. So she's not interested in caring within that relationship. And she's also not very much interested in getting to know what you think and how you think and why you think that, right? So there's a high level of intolerance and maybe an abrasiveness, right? This usually shows up as someone that's critical and judgy and very dismissive of everything and anything that doesn't match her own opinion. But let's look at something else. Here we have conviction, the conviction behavior. So how attached am I to my belief system? How attached am I to my opinions? How attached am I to what I think is right and what I think is wrong? So she's very much attached to her own belief system and to her own opinion, whereas everybody else is rather open to a conversation which also matches, their understanding and their comprehension trait. So what we see here is that we have three people who move towards relationships and nourishing them and building them and creating that bridge and wanting genuinely to get along. Whereas we have one person who is simply not wired that way. So that's the first thing that as their coach or consultant, you would want to work on in order to make sure that she doesn't put pressure on everybody else. Make sure that she doesn't demotivate or tire everybody else. And here I want to bring in another ingredient that's very important. And unfortunately, it is the case with this particular team. She doesn't have a lot of self-motivation. So she has quite a bit of suffering and lack of self-confidence, lack of self-assurance and self-resilience. And what this means is that the way that she will internally react to it will be to lash out and judge, criticize, or burn bridges with other people. People that, as you can see, are very, warm and predisposed to nourish and justify and care for the relationship. So she will erode, she will contaminate the environment that they believe and they create naturally. Okay, so this is really important. And so the person that as the coach or a consultant that you would want to work with is not everybody else, is this person. Try to understand whether there is a margin to create such bridges and to maybe soften those abrasive corners and edges and rough edges that she puts into the team, right? Because she is the one that is creating the silent friction and the silent tension, because they do not create that. It's just not in their behavioral architecture. And there's one more ingredient that shows me that, which is this: pressure management. When it is really low, now all of them have it, she's got it at -20, and these other two actually have pretty good pressure management, 40 and 30. So pressure management tells me how reactive and how moody, how roller coastery the person actually is with her emotional state or her mood swings or her behaviors. So someone who's got a pressure management at -60 tells me that she really is undergoing a bunch of emotional turmoil that she cannot regulate by herself and that she kind of dumps on everybody else. And because she's surrounded by nice people, genuinely nice people, open and present in the relationship, this type of person needs to be seriously helped by the manager, by the coach, by the consultant, whoever is her guide, to actually try and stop all the leaks. Because otherwise, one person's leaks will in time become everybody's leaks. And then the manager or business owner or your client will have much bigger problems. So in the interest of time, and I just focused on certain major differences that I see on the maps, but there's a lot more. There are many more differences and incompatibilities that I could have explained to you. But you start seeing now that when behavior is mapped clearly, team dynamics stop being puzzles and stop being about emotions and stop being about big invisible issues. It all becomes very transparent, and you actually have a design, a very clear design of all the variables that are happening day after day within the team. So performance finally no longer has to depend on stressed out leaders. So if you help leaders or help team managers or help teams themselves, you can see how clearly behavior mapping can offer you a clear picture of where energy leaks and where relationships tense and where things just stop working. Okay, so if you want to explore how to integrate this into your business, reach out and let's explore a partnership together.